Then little Gerda wept hot tears which fell on his breast, and they thawed his heart and melted away the bit of the mirror there. He looked at her, and she sang, "The rose in the valley is blooming so sweet, the child Jesus is there the children to greet." At the sound of the song, Kay burst into tears. He wept so much that the last glass splinter was washed from his eye. Then he knew Gerda and cried, "Gerda, sweet little Gerda, where have you been so long? And where have I been?" He looked around him. "How cold it is here," said he, "how empty and cold." And he clung fast to Gerda, who laughed and wept for joy. It was such a happy time as Kay warmed into life again that even the bits of ice danced about for joy, and when they laid themselves down, they formed exactly the letters the Snow Queen had told Kay he must find if he was to become his own master and have the whole world and a pair of new skates. Gerda kissed his cheeks, and they grew rosy. She kissed his eyes, and they shone like her own. She kissed his hands and feet, and he was once more merry and strong. The Snow Queen might come back as soon as she liked. There stood his order of release, the word eternity written in letters of ice. Kay and Gerda took each other's hands and wandered out of the great hall, talking of their grandmother and of the roses on the roof. Wherever they went, the winds were hushed and the sun burst forth. When they reached the bush with the red berries, they found the reindeer waiting. He carried them to the Finn woman, who warmed them in her hot room, and told them what they were to do on their journey home, and lent them her sledge. When they reached the country where the first green growing things peeped forth, they took leave of the reindeer. "Farewell, farewell," said they all. Soon they heard the first little birds twittering, and there came out of the wood toward them, riding on a beautiful horse which Gerda knew had once drawn her golden chariot, a young damsel in a bright red cap with pistols at her belt. This was the little robber maiden who was tired of being at home and had set out into the world. She and Gerda knew each other at once. It was a joyful meeting. "You are a nice fellow," said she to Kay. "I should like to know if you deserve to be run after to the end of the world." But Gerda patted her cheeks and told her their story. "It's all right at last," said the robber maiden, and she took the hands of each and promised that if she should ever pass through the town where they lived, she would come and visit them. Then away she rode off into the wide world. Kay and Gerda walked on hand in hand. It was lovely spring weather, were flowers and greenery everywhere. Soon they recognized the big town where they lived, with its tall towers in which the bells still rung their merry peals. They went straight on and hastened up to their grandmother's room, where everything was standing just as they had left it. But as they entered, they remarked that they were now grown up. The roses hung blooming in at the open window. There stood the little children's chairs, and Kay and Gerda sat down on them, still holding each other by the hand. All the cold, empty splendor of the Snow Queen's palace had passed from their memory like a bad dream. Grandmother sat in the bright sunshine and read aloud from the Bible, "Unless ye become as little children, ye cannot enter the kingdom of heaven." And Kay and Gerda looked in each other's eyes, and all at once they understood the old hymn, "The rose in the valley is blooming so sweet, the child Jesus is there the children to greet." There sat the two grown-up people, grown up and yet children, children in heart, and it was summertime, glorious summer.